It is rare for a major location in the Long Dark to have an extensive history. The only places like this are Carter Dam and Blackrock Penitentiary. Blackrock's history stretches further back than Carter's. It was built to house the worst prisoners that Canada had the displeasure to house. Far away from the mainland and tucked away into the deep mountains of Great Bear Island, it was meant to be these prisoners' final destination, even if they somehow escaped. This is the history of Blackrock as a region, a prison, and everything that happened in the shadow of Blackrock Mountain. Before I continue, please make sure to comment, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so I can keep making videos like this. According to Warden Franklin in Wintermute Episode 4, Blackrock's history started about 100 years ago. This means I need to amend my timeline for the Long Dark. Blackrock was most likely constructed anywhere between World War I and the Great Depression. With the approximate timing of the events of Wintermute being 2022, this is a much better estimate than what I had before. There is a reason I used to have it in the 1940s, and I will explain it later. The prison was designed by German architect G.W. John, who was originally a pipe organ builder and designer. He emigrated to Canada in the late 19th century, had an interest in Egyptian monuments, the music and astronomy of ancient Greece, and British social theorist Jeremy Bentham. Bentham was the founder of modern Unitarianism, which is a series of theories based on maximizing the happiness and well-being of individuals. Going back to the name John, I do want to note something very important. Yes, this is not the only time the name John with this particular spelling is referenced in the Long Dark. From what I can tell, this name is an uncommon version of the English name John, which is normally pronounced Johann in German. Searching for the name John brings me to Hans Henny John, who was a writer and organ builder. It seems like Hans Henny John might have been the inspiration for G.W. John. Also, thank you to Spinecrackers on YouTube for helping me figure out how to pronounce this name, as I have been pronouncing it as Jean. Now I'll go back to the second appearance of the name John in the Long Dark. If you played the Tales trilogy from the Tales from the Far Territory expansion, one of the very last things you do to wrap up the tales is pick up Lana Vertaski's ID card. Her ID card says John Industries on the back. Is this the same John? It's possible. Like I said, this German version of the English name John seems to be very uncommon. I think this particular spelling and pronunciation was intentional, possibly connecting G.W. John, the architect of Blackrock Penitentiary, to the financial backers of Rudiger's experiment. Anyways, I apologize for this rather lengthy side tangent. This video is really the only good place to mention this possible connection. A majority of the history of Blackrock is derived from two different series of lore notes called Building Blackrock and Archival Report, as well as the conversations with Warden Franklin. The history of the region doesn't start with the construction of the prison though. It starts with one of the most common practices that is seen all over Great Bear Island: mining. Before its construction, miners and prospectors came to the region to find their fortune. They were after gold of all things. In fact, it was suspected that gold could be found in the surrounding rivers and streams. The location itself was selected purposefully so that Blackrock's walls weren't the only thing to keep the prisoners inside. According to Warden Franklin, even if a prisoner escaped, they had about 50 kilometers of wilderness to get through before they found the road out. I don't think he meant that Blackrock, the region, was 50 kilometers wide. What I think he meant was that any prisoner that escaped would have to get through 50 kilometers to reach the edge of the island. This puts into perspective how massive Great Bear Island really is, at least from a lore-accurate perspective. While the walls weren't that impressive, the prison was still a fortress. The surrounding landscape, climate, and wildlife made sure that no prisoner could truly get away. Blackrock Penitentiary was built with steel and brick from the mainland and rock sourced directly from Blackrock Mountain. At the foot of the mountain, there were quarries where the stone was taken from. The surrounding valley was filled with miners, which also helped to build the prison. With any construction project that far back in history, there was no doubt if there were injuries and death. While the region itself would house some of the prison staff and their families, others would put as much distance between their home and the prison walls. They had a very good reason for that. Blackrock, metaphorically, was a massive do not enter sign. The first warden of the new Blackrock Penitentiary was a chatty fellow, at least according to one of his cooks. This particular cook for the first warden had been doing the same thing during the war, cooking. This is the line from Archival Report C that led me to believe that Blackrock was built during or just after World War II, but now I know it was much earlier. Blackrock was a testament to Great Bear Island's historical significance. While the island would later be known for its mining industry and summer tourism, the only thing that would endure through the collapse was Blackrock. Unfortunately for the islanders, it was always viewed as a curse. Surrounding towns would steer clear of the place. Despite the harsh landscape and merciless winters, the hardy people of the island feared it. When it comes to prison breaks out of Blackrock, there are two different instances that we know of. Warden Franklin shares with Will that approximately 20 years prior, 2 prisoners escaped during the summertime. About 3 days later, they were desperate to be let back in. They had gone through hell and returned nearly dead. Another instance happened approximately a month before the start of the Quiet Apocalypse. The newspaper clipping in the guard station shared the details of the 5 prisoners and their escape. It turned out the details had leaked to various media outlets investigating Canadian prisons. 1 prisoner returned, 1 was found dead, and 3 were still out there somewhere. It was almost guaranteed they died somewhere on the island. The point is, there's no way to escape Blackrock. G.W. John's design, Great Bear Island's terrain, and Mother Nature herself made sure there was no escape back to society, even if a prisoner managed to escape the prison walls. Shortly before the start of the Quiet Apocalypse, a new group of prisoners was set to arrive at Blackrock. In fact, the arrival date would have been in the middle of the night, the exact same night of the first flare. Just a few weeks prior, an avalanche occurred in Pleasant Valley, severing it from the highway. If you watch the Memories of Pleasant Valley Part 1 video, you will know that the avalanche was caused by the Forest Talkers. This avalanche would be the reason why the prison bus carrying the new prisoners had to go through Milton to arrive at Blackrock. This road, which once connected the interior mountains with a major port town called Port Mary, would also be connected to the shortcut to the highway. This is the only explanation why the bus was coming from the other way. The Great Bear Highway, which is responsible for the death of Milton's economy and prosperity, would curse the town one last time. At the very moment of the first flare, the prison bus would veer as it was struck by the electromagnetic pulse, causing it to crash into the tunnel. The tunnel would collapse, allowing for some of the prisoners to make it through on both sides, but an unlucky few would not make it at all. Mathis, the leader of the group of prisoners that would take over Blackrock, and his companions Heller and Bakan would make it through to the other side of the tunnel collapse. Hobbs, the prisoner that Will runs into in Milton, and a few others would be trapped in the mountain town. From here, the Milton side prisoners would terrorize the town, forcing the residents into the schoolhouse. Due to the various occurrences of auroras during the Night of the Lights in Milton, one such aurora would spark an electrical fire in the schoolhouse. This would be the death blow that would essentially kill the town of Milton, except for a lonely, blind woman. Unfortunately, according to her, the tunnel collapse would be the end of Grey Mother. Milton, a town cursed by the construction of the highway, was doomed because of its connection with Blackrock. While these events during the Night of the Lights didn't take place in Blackrock, they are undeniably a part of the prison's history. On the other side of the Milton tunnel, Mathis and his crew would start making their way towards Blackrock. They would get lost in Pleasant Valley, getting separated. While there, Molly, a resident of the valley, would enact her revenge against men on these prisoners. Mathis and a few of them would eventually make it to Blackrock. By the time they arrived, the prison had already seen a riot, resulting in the prisoners taking over. A few weeks prior to the Quiet Apocalypse, the power went out. The prison had backup generators, but that wasn't enough to keep order. The exact timing isn't known, but the prisoners would start a riot sometime before the start of the Quiet Apocalypse. Shortly after the first flare, Jace would find herself looking for shelter in the night. She would come across Blackrock just as the prisoners started executing the guards and the prison employees. For about an hour, she could hear gunshots from inside the prison walls. Once Mathis and his crew arrived, the plan to break out Donner, his son, out of solitary would begin. This would be the end of Blackrock as a penitentiary and the start of something far worse. An army of prisoners were now free, and they had a leader that was ready to burn the world down around him. Thanks to Will and Jace's actions in Wintermute Episode 4, the prison would fall to pieces. Burning beneath the Blackrock Mountain, the fortress would finally break. That is the conclusion of the history of Blackrock. With such a long history, Blackrock Penitentiary outlasted pretty much everything that the island was once known for. Reeling from the devastating effects of the collapse, the only thing left would be the prison. time would slowly break the island, and the only thing that remained was the one thing that provided nothing good for the islanders. The world only needed Great Bear Island for its precious resources, and to store Canada's worst criminals. The fall of Blackrock is a reminder that nothing good comes from places like it. Inside those walls was a century of rage left behind by the prisoners that lived and died there. It took a colossal geomagnetic storm to finally break those walls. In the next lore video for the Long Dark, I'll be going over the many stories of interest that would come to be thanks to Blackrock. The memories of Blackrock are just as grim as the prison's history. If you want to catch up on any lore I've already covered, you can check out all the various playlists for the history of the Long Dark, Wintermute, Rudiger's Project, the people and places of Great Bear Island, and the Buffer Memories. They will be linked in the description. If you enjoyed this lore video for the Long Dark, please don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so I can keep making them.